here. Well, we're going to call a meeting to order here and get started today. This is House Motor Vehicles Committee, and we've got 6 bills on the agenda to consider today. Welcome to all you here. First bill is the Senate Bill 637, and that will be Chairman Smith, who has joined us today, and we appreciate your attendance here today. Chairman, if you'll come up and sit at the microphone, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Appreciate you hearing Senate Bill 637. Last year, the committee may remember we passed Senate Bill 226. It was very late in the session, and at that time when it was difficult to smooth all the wrinkles out, when the governor signed the bill into law, he did so with the request that we come back this year and allow his office to have some influence on some very minor technical changes to the bill, and that's what Senate Bill 637 does. There are really 3 substantive changes to it, all of them relatively minor. It changes the number of commissioners on the Driver's Education Commission from 9 to 8. It eliminates Section 2, which required that the funding piece of this be prioritized, the fee collection be prioritized as the number 1 fee priority, which, of course, that put it ahead of things like training and retirement and things like that that could have caused serious problems. And so we're just putting it in line with the rest of them, and I think that's sort of a more reasonable place for it. And it also defines approved driver education course as one that is approved by the department. The reason why it looks like there are more changes than just those 3 are that the Legislative Counsel's office worked on trying to conform the bill with the changes that have been made in the law since the original bill came through, because we're actually amending Senate Bill 226 in a sense here because its effective date is in the future rather than amending the current code. So that's required us to make sure that the code is consistent with the changes that have been made since then when it comes into the effective date. And finally, the Commissioner Les Hammond, who's here today, requested after the Senate Judiciary Committee heard the bill that he make a couple of very small changes to conform it to existing law as well, and that's on page 4, lines 23 through 27. There are a few lines there that were added after we heard it at the request of the Commissioner to conform it to the law when the effective date comes into place. So those are all, in a sense, non-substantive changes, except the 3 that I mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Senator Smith. Are there any questions of Senator Smith and the committee on this bill? All right, Mr. Sims.
Senator, on page 3, on part 2, under line 11, I'm going down to 28. No, I don't have substitute. I'm sorry. 630. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm getting on the substitute. Same thing. 11 down to 30, or down to 27. I'm sorry. Let me ask you a question on that. Are you going to terminate? Let's say you got an 18-year-old kid that's parent dies, and he leaves school to go work because that's the only way he can do anything. Are we going to suspend his license or her license at that time because of this now with this new language?
Well, I appreciate the question. This falls in that category of things that have already been enacted. The effective date of Senate Bill 226 is still out in front of us, and so what they did with this section was make sure that it was consistent with the laws that have been enacted so far, because this one doesn't come into effect until January. So I'm not skirting your question, but this was not a request that I made or the governor's office made. It was one that Legislative Counsel said that we had to put in because we already have this since 226 passed. I don't know if that helps or not.
Well, my question is, though, are we not, in a case such as that, where a parent or something dies, or there's a divorce or some kind of trauma within the family, and this is the only way the family can make a living, and that this kid leaves school and go to work, are we going to jeopardize him, even though he may have been a good student up until that time, but he just can't stay in school and make it for, he may have to make it on for his family or her family?
All right. I'm going to try to answer your question substantively. It goes back to the governor's bill that was passed, not Senate Bill 226, dealing with truancy in school systems, and the governor did build into that. I remember at the time there is a escape clause for judicial review in the event that there is a hardship on families. If you want me to take some time, I can find that.
That's fine. If it's in there, it just didn't.
That issue specifically came up about what happens in these unique circumstances where you really need to work at home, for example, which in past generations has been more common. And we did build in an escape clause in those situations. And it should be following. Here, in fact, if you look on page 4, line 16, the department is authorized, starting on line 13, to grant exemption from this if there's clear and convincing evidence that the enforcement would create an undue hardship on the minor or the minor's family, or if it would act as a detriment to the health or welfare of a minor. It's a pretty big exception. So
I understand
that's
that.
built
My
into
question though are the licenses suspended and then this judicial review, or is there a judicial review before the license is suspended?
All right, that process is outlined on page 4, starting on line 3. Notice is sent via certified mail of what's going to happen, and the minor so notified, starting on line 8, may request a hearing within 10 business days. Within 30 days, they have to have that hearing by the department under the rules of the Georgia Administrative Procedures Act, and the department is then authorized to grant exceptions. So my understanding is that the issue was dealt with in a process where the due process is protected through notice and opportunity to be heard. Again, I'm a little far afield from the actual Senate Bill 226, but that's my recollection.
Senator Smith, you answered it well, but I want to get it down here where an old goat like me can get it. Can driver services give us that just?
Well, let me get
suspended or what?
Senator Smith, why don't we give Mr. Hammond an opportunity just to comment on that? Mr. Hammond, you want to come up beside Senator Smith there for a second and just comment on that?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Les Hammond, Department of Driver Services. Representative Sims, currently that's the way the law works.
In other words, they suspend it and then
they get a notification because we've been notified by Department of Education that you've missed 10 days of school. We then notify you as the student that your license is going to be suspended unless you ask for a hearing. Then we go to these provisions that grant the commissioner a chance to look at extraordinary circumstances such as needing to work because the parents are dead or something like that.
follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In this extraordinary circumstance, this kid probably is not going to have any kind of legal help or legal guidance. Probably won't be able to afford any. May not know where to go or what to do.
Well,
you understand we're talking
yes,
in a
the
situation
notice,
with a
of
minor,
course,
right?
spells it out that they can do it. They don't have to have a lawyer to do it, and that's currently the law. This bill is not affecting what's currently the law.
I understand. It's just a concern of mine, but
Yes, sir.
I understand it's in place. I just don't like somebody to have something suspended, and it's really not the fault of the kid. He's just trying, or her, is trying to make a living for their family, which does happen at times.
Yes, sir.
The two ways when that issue came up that we tried to address those concerns were there was some discussion about making go to a court proceeding, like a juvenile judge. And what we did was put it with the department so that it would be easier and less burdensome and less costly without a need for a lawyer, just to go through the department through their notice and their procedures. And then we also tried to make a pretty tight trigger on the hearing so that you wouldn't have a situation where someone's suspended for 6 months without an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. Okay. You can answer. Thank you.
Thanks an awful lot. We appreciate that. Are there any other questions of Senator Smith? Senator, we appreciate that. I think that just for general information purposes, the fund that's was accumulated last year in your bill is up to about $3.5 million at this point in time. You see that significantly being reduced as a result of the change in positioning?
I don't think so, because we haven't actually been, they run about 6 months behind on reprioritizing those, and so we actually haven't received the benefit yet of the number one position. So we're correcting it before it really goes into that.
Okay. Any other questions of Senator Smith? Mr. Powell, what's your number down there?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask, is your intention to vote on this bill today?
Yes. Mr. Powell, you
I
attorney?
would like to ask you for the committee, because there's a good bit of time left. I'd like the committee, if possible, at your discretion, maybe to hold it till maybe Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. I'd not seen the substitute, and I'd like a little bit of time to look over it.
I would really like to have Mr. Senator Smith have the opportunity to get on the rules calendar as quickly as possible with this bill, to tell you the truth, because it's going to get loaded after the committee meetings on Tuesday. Mr. Powell, I have looked over this bill, and I have been out at Conyers with the commissioner, and I have dealt with this issue over the last 6 months in terms of the requirements for the changes that we see here. The outline of the changes to be made really deal with the number of people on the board, the positioning of the fee within the structure of those fees for the penalty, which I know you had some difficulty concern with last year when we ran this by, and really changing the driver education requirement definition in terms of changing it from a large D and a large E to a small d and a small e, which allows some latitude on the part of the department to get this done. I think the bill is essential. If we are going to do Joshua's Law, I'd like to move this as quickly as possible through the committee. So I am going to ask for a vote on this today. If, in fact, there are things that you would like to consider as amendments, we could consider them in rules. I don't think this will be a structured proposition. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'm here as a courtesy to the governor and fulfilling my promise to allow them to make some inputs in this bill. So I feel like I've given that my good faith effort, and I'll leave it in your good hands.
okay. All right. Is there any other further discussion of this bill at this point in time? Mr. Talton, you're recognized for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we.
It's a do-pass recommendation from Mr. Talton
Second.
by substitute. Second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did everybody get a chance to say aye? Let's take it one more time. I didn't hear too many. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator. We'll move ahead. Okay. Okay. Representative Cole, if you would approach the microphone here today. Senator Smith, who's carrying this bill for you over here?
But I don't have a preference, Mr. Chairman.
I know Representative Ralston carried it for you last time. I'll be happy to carry it for you, too. It really doesn't matter. So your preference.
I mean, David be fine, you'd be great, either one, and I'll be happy to ask if you want me to. Just have
I'll do it. Okay. All right. Good. Representative Cole, let's just start. Let's just outline. You got 3 bills here today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've got Senate Bill 400,
Right.
and you've got 570. Do you have 570?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was the third bill you're speaking of?
19.
619. Okay. Why don't we take the windshield tinting bill first, 570.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This addresses a certain issue when you're trying to apply for an exemption to the Georgia state law for window tinting. Right now, it states that you have to have a written permission from a person licensed to practice medicine in the state of Georgia. What this would do would just allow an optometrist who is very versed in a lot of eye and window tint, the circumstances surrounding the eye, allow them to sign this so that they could get an exemption on their window tint. That's basically the whole gist of the bill, and I would answer any questions if you had any.
Any questions of Representative Cole by committee?
Proper time, I'd like to make a motion.
You'll hold that for just a second. Mr. Cole, I think the only question that I would have would be the one dealing with the bill we passed last year having to do with the tint. That was Representative Hill's bill that effectively prescribed the tinting down to a particular level that the public safety people could handle. And this bill really has nothing to do with that, right?
Right.
Okay.
The way it has been is you could still get an exemption, but you just had to have a licensed person that practices medicine. This would allow, especially in our rural areas, you know how hard it is for some people to get around, even to get,
Right.
To go see an optometrist, and then optometrist says, well, I'd love to do it for you. You have to go see an MD now. And to get 2 appointments, we're just going to simplify it, just allow them to do it at one stop, get the permission slip, and they're on their way.
Any questions for Representative Cole on this bill then? Ms. Bearden, you said you wanted to testify or not?
I don't remember.
Okay, all right. We'll recognize Mr. Murphy for a motion.
Before I make the motion,
Well, I recognize you for something else then, a question or whatever.
a question. Is it gonna cost anything for, how much is it gonna be the cost for them to get this certification from the optometrist?
I believe it's nothing.
Good. Then I would like to make my motion, my other motion, Mr. Chairman.
And what motion would that be, Mr.?
Will do pass.
Thank you. Do pass in a second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cole. All right, 570. Let's take 619 next.
Thank you once again. This bill brings legislation that creates a special license plate, and this came about from the nice young ladies at the Pilot Club, that supports programs for persons with brain-related disorders and disability projects in Georgia. There'll be a $25 manufacturing fee in addition to the regular motor vehicle registration fee. The manufacturing fee derived from the sale will be apportioned as follows: $2 to the Department of Revenue, $13 to be deposited in the general fund, and $10 to the Pilot International for support of programs for persons with brain-related disorders and disabilities. No special license plates will be issued except upon the receipt of at least 1,000 applications. The special license plates will have an application period of 2 years after January 1st, 2007. And after such time, minimum number of applications is not met, the department will not continue to accept the manufacturing fee, and all fees will be refunded to applicants. And the department will not be required to continue to manufacture a special license plate if the number of active registrations falls below 500.
Okay, and so that basically conforms to the bill 1053 that we passed out of here last week in terms of shared revenue.
Yes, sir.
Shared revenue tags. Any questions on that bill for Mr. Cole? Yes, and that is contingent on the constitutional amendment.
Right. Yes,
we
that,
passed also.
That is on your last.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, if you'll hold one, I would appreciate that. I'm just thinking for a second. If, as I think about this bill, we may want to take and put this bill into a Senate substitute for 1053 because it conforms to that, and all the tags would be in one place at that point in time. And if we could do that, then we'll move this bill out should it be the committee's desire, and then before you move it in rules, I think it would be appropriate to see if we'll just stick it in the Senate substitute that will then come back to us for approval because it's basically the same thing. Include it with all the rest of the tags.
Sounds good, I'm sure.
Okay.
Due to y'all's recent study with the tag issue, I'm sure y'all are.
All right, recognize Mr. Sims. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, Senate Bill 400 is going to look a little different from the perspective of the way it is right now. Mr. Cole, you want to handle it, or you want Mr. Sims to handle that, or how do you want to do this?
Well, I've been speaking with Senator Tolleson and myself. We're in agreement with this Senate with your substitute to SB 400. So
let's just tell the committee what's going on here in terms of how this is formed. For the committee members, Senator Tolleson passed a bill that allows law enforcement agencies to use ATVs in pursuit of their policing activities. The bill is about 99% the same as Representative Freeman's bill that we passed out of the House on the 30th day. I've talked to Senator Tolleson about this, and he is content to allow us the opportunity to use this bill to look at some other ATV legislation that did not make it out of rules, which was in the form of House Bill 1004, and that's that's the position we're in right now, I think. Any questions on that issue from the committee? Then I think probably, Mr. Cole, it would probably be appropriate for us to let Mr. Sims. Why don't you come down, because I think it'd be easier to get it done. Mr. Cole, you can stay there with him if you care to, and look over his shoulder, or you can retire, whichever one you please.
I'm on.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee. What we did with 1004 is we have changed it considerably from where we were to start with. We're taking out all the tag and title language out of the bill. The reason that we've been asked to do this, it was just going to be so hard to do the tag and title, and we had tried to amend the bill where it would just be for folks that had the vehicles used on public lands. And what we had decided to do now is just to leave the safety part in there. I think back when we first started this, Mr. Bearden was on the committee that asked us to just do it this way. And Tim and I had talked about this. We came up with some ideas and talking with the chairman, and we're talking with legislative council and with the speaker and with the rules chairman. We've decided that this would be the best way to do it. They think, along with I think along with this committee, that with the amount of time that we spend on ATVs all year long, that we do need to have some kind of legislation to come out that maybe is not so garnered toward tags and titles, but something that's toward the safety end. And that's what I was trying to get to from the first. And we were trying to make it safer for these things all over the state. Basically, what we've done is, again, we deleted all the tag and title information and registration information out of it. What we did leave in there was the safety course being supervised by someone 18 years or older. The children will wear a helmet. This child under 16 is prohibited from operating a vehicle on any public road or highway or the shoulder of the road. Any person 16 years or older must have a valid driver's license to operate all-terrain vehicle on public lands. Those were all in the original bill. Under no circumstances it should be construed anywhere that anyone can use one on a public road. And that political subdivisions are still able to enact ordinances to further restrict the operation of these vehicles in their own jurisdictions, which means the cities and counties, if they choose to do so. They've always had that ability. We've just put it into law. Again, that's basically what it did. That's what the bill does. And with your consideration, I hope that we can put this forward. And I do have the auspices of the leadership of the House that this will be something that they want to put out.
Okay, are there questions of Mr. Sims? Questions from the committee of Mr. Sims?
Chairman,
Okay, recognizing Representative Murphy.
just a parliamentary inquiry. Are we going from LC 34781S, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the substitute.
And it will be a committee study.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Mr. Sims, you want to comment on page 2, section H?
Yes, sir. You want to talk, the convictions of anyone, you're talking about the provisions for that, those convictions are punishable by impoundment on the first conviction and a fine of $150. The second conviction would be an impoundment and a fine of $500, and a third conviction would be punishable by forfeiture and a fine of $1,000. It's very unlikely that any of this is going to take place. None of this would take place on private land. We're not trying to. Anybody would not be restricted to do whatever they want to do on their own private place. This would only be in violations on public property of some description, whether it be on the road, highway, and we definitely want them off the roads and highways. We've already said that. And if we were in the national parks, if that be the case, or on state property such as management areas, and violated some rules that they may promulgate, that would be up to them, but that would be the rules and the restrictions then, as far as the punishment is concerned.
Okay, any other questions for, excuse me, Mr. Powell? What's your number down there, Mr. Powell, on your microphone?
Please.
Okay.
On line 11, page 2, any person 16 years or older must have a valid driver's license to operate.
On public land.
I understand, already requiring that they have a permit, a safety permit.
Safety course. But basically, that's a written
Anybody under the age
course.
of 16 can ride on public land.
Sir?
If I understand what you're proposing, that anyone under the age of 16, they've got to have a training course or a safety
That's
course.
correct. That's right.
And they can operate on public land.
That's correct.
At the age of 16.
They can if they're 10. We're restricted to 10-year-olds. As long as they're supervised, they can operate on
From
public
ages
land.
10 to 16.
Yes, sir.
But then on this provision, you're saying at 16, then they've got to have a driver's license.
Yes, sir.
They've already got a safety license and they can operate under that age. Why would it be necessary to have a driver's license to do the same thing?
I think we just did that because it was, that was, if you want to strike that, it's fine with me. The bottom line is that I felt like that anyone 16 would have, more than likely would have a driver's license anyway.
But there may be cases that they don't.
That's correct.
Mr. Sims, isn't it true that age 16, they don't, not required to have adult supervision
That's
anymore?
correct.
And that's the reason that they're required to have a driver's license
I think
at
that may
age
be the
16.
reason we did that, because they won't have to have adult supervision at age 16, if they had a driver's license.
Further questions, Mr. Powell?
Line 20, giving the local authorities, local subdivisions, the authority to start enacting.
They already have that privilege. If they want to make the law stricter, they can. That's up to, it would be up to them if they want to do that. That is already the law. I mean, it's basically given that if the county wants to make a county ordinance that's stricter than the state law, they can do that.
I mean,
And they just can't undo.
do you feel that's a wise proposition to give local authorities so that they can, on a county by county basis, that they can make these laws stronger or deviate from what
They
the
have
state?
that right now. I mean, we've already, the right to do that is already there if they wish to do it. They can already enact a law that restricts them even further. We're just putting that into the law so it's recognized, but it's not uncommon that counties already do something more strict than the state.
Can you tell me what jurisdictions that enact stronger laws dealing with motor vehicles and what the state statutes are?
Well, it's like in the area, we have a city ordinance about golf carts, that they can't use golf carts on public roads at all in our city.
But now, that's already a state law.
Well, but they further restricted it around the golf courses and those areas down there specifically for children and those kinds of things. So they further restricted the law.
Mr. Powell, I'm going to let Mr. Foster comment on this since he sat through all the study committee meetings.
I was just going to say that language was added at our request by lead counsel as just an affirmative statement because the portion of the law that gives the political subdivisions the ability to further restrict is in the off-road vehicle statute, not specifically ATVs, but it deals with all forms of off-road vehicles. And since this bill dealt specifically with ATVs, we just restated what was already in that statute.
Including the fine structure.
No, the fine structure is in additional.
As addition. And we had done that because of Representative Matt Crawford and the judge in his jurisdiction had been doing that. He had been picking the vehicle, having the vehicles picked up, and they had very, very few ATV problems. After about the first 2 or 3 pickups of those vehicles, it almost had stopped their ATV problems all over their county. And it was their juvenile judge, if I remember right, is the way he stated it was doing that. And that's one of the reasons we put that in. It was at Mr. Crawford's request.
Follow up, Mr. Powell?
I get the gist of it.
Other questions for Mr. Sims? Other question? Mr. Sims, just in looking at this, coming from the original bill that we had, when we're talking about conviction here, I mean, the other bill had in it the tags and titling and all that sort of stuff in it that we were dealing with, and I guess the question I have, maybe Mr. sparked by Mr. Powell, is whether or not impoundment on the first offense is over the top, or whether that's an effective thing to do.
My answer to that would be that more than likely, it's going to be someone riding on the road or on the side of the road. We're not really going to have any other, it's not going to be on private property. They're not going to be able to restrict any use on private property, and we didn't include, nor did we want to include that, which is part of the problem with tags and titles. And so the issue is probably going to be on a public road or the public right-of-way that someone does this violation, and you don't want them to ride back down the road, and it's probably going to need to be picked up at that time. And if mom and dad probably won't know where they are, and that's probably going to be a kid that has mother or dad's ATV on the road. The one thing I wish we could say in this law, and we can't, is say, mom and dad, please keep the keys to these things in your pocket till you get home. But we can't make a law that says that. And what we're just trying to do is make mom and dad a little more responsible in knowing where these kids are on these vehicles. That's the main thing that's what the biggest issue that we were trying to drive at.
Is impoundment at the officer's discretion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Where's the portion of, I can't find it in here, where's the portion that allows them to ride on the side, the unpaved side of the road?
Subsection C, probably.
In other words, if they're over 16, they can use the side of the road.
I thought we had an affirmative statement in 1004 that said that they were used to, the unpaved.
Yeah, that is. I think it's in there, the unpaved area, and I'm trying to think. I think under F, including paved shoulders.
Okay. All right, so let's just read that down. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to permit the operation of all-terrain vehicles on public highways of the state, including paved shoulders. So by exclusion, in other words, we don't say they can't ride on the unpaved
That's correct. If you're
portion of the shoulder.
Yes, sir. If you're a licensed driver.
Okay. All right. Okay. Mr. Murphy.
Is there a provision in here to once the two vehicles it's impounded, for them to be able to get it back? I
Yes.
mean,
If they pay the fine, they get it back.
so it's whatever the fine is levied on the impoundment, they'll be able to get it back?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions for Mr. Sims? Is there a motion? Mr. Powell.
I'd like to, for this committee to consider striking lines 20 through 27. I have some concerns about expanding the powers for local jurisdictions to pass regulations for impoundment and fines of $150, $500, and $1,000. I have some serious concerns about that.
Are you making that in the form of
I would
an
like to
amendment?
make, if the chair is accepting
To go the posture we're in, let's get a motion for the bill, then we'll look at amendments and discuss the amendments and take it in that order. So do I hear a motion on the bill itself? Mr. Talton makes a motion to pass by substitute. All right, well, we're in the posture of accepting amendments at this point in time. Recognize
I'd like to
Mr.
make that
Powell.
in the form of a motion that we strike lines 20 through 27,
On page 2?
page 2.
Okay. Mr. Sims, do you have some comments that you'd like to make?
I think that if we say this and we do not have some punishment within the act, we're really defeating the purpose of, trying to make someone do what we're saying we're doing. If there's no way to punish, then we really haven't done anything to affect the safety of these vehicles at all, or to make anyone do what we're asking them to do according to the law. I do think that the political subdivisions have the right to make their own decisions about the operation and use of these, because I think that's basically local control, and if they feel and deem it necessary to make the laws tougher, then that's their option, because they are elected by the people just like we are.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Mr. Bruce for a question.
The question I have, when we open this up and allow the local jurisdictions to make these laws more restrictive and create additional penalties, is it possible that a child could end up being incarcerated
No, sir.
for multiple violations? or
As
anything like that?
if you'll notice, we're not trying to, it doesn't say they're going to be arrested. It just said they're going to pick the vehicle up, and the fine, if they were convicted, would be $150.
Right, I understand, that's what this says,
Yeah.
but it also says that a local jurisdiction.
They have the right to do that now if they wish.
So you're telling me that right now, a child could get jail time or incarcerated or whatever for violating,
YDC,
excuse me?
YDC.
Well, yeah, juvenile
I
detention.
can only assume that yes, but they have that they have the right to do that now, if they wanted to give a child YDC for that purpose. I mean, what we do here is stating what the state wishes. Right now, if a child is convicted of speeding in a county, certain counties, the fine may be the state fine may be $100. I don't know what it may be, but the county fine may be $400. They have the right to do that now.
Yeah, but we're talking apples and oranges. I don't have a problem with the monetary. I'm just concerned about a child getting criminalized.
It is not my intention to lock kids up for it, if that's not the intention of what I do. But now, that does not mean, even if we take line 20 and 21 out, which if it's the judgment of the committee to take 20 and 21 out, it really makes no difference, because the county can still do that. They can do that now. This is just a reiteration of the fact that it's already law. Can I do that to legislative council? Is that correct?
That's true.
I mean, they have the right to do that now.
Maybe that's something we need to look at. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions of Representative Sims? The posture we're in is that there's an amendment that's been proposed by Representative Powell, which would require second. But let's go back to Mr. Powell here. Recognize Mr. Powell.
Chairman, if this might make it more palatable for the author of this bill, I would like to withdraw that amendment and make a second amendment, if possible.
First Amendment's withdrawn. Mr. Powell, do you have a second amendment?
I'd like to make a recommendation that we scratch line 2021 on line 22. First conviction violating any provisions of this code shall be punishable by strike impoundment of all-terrain vehicle, then read punishable by a fine of, I'd like to lower that to $50 on the first offense. Do the same on line, the same general information, scratch by impoundment on the second offense. Drop that fine from 500 to 100. And then on the third offense, do the same on the
Take out
scratch by forfeiture, and do that fine at $250. Basically, progressively, if we're talking about dealing with kids, and if I understand the message that I think I've always understood Representative Sherman was trying to get to, is send a message to parents to be more responsible as far as allowing their kids to use these vehicles. I don't think that we want this to get into such a punitive nature that they're confiscating vehicles and all. In the real world, if a juvenile is taken off of one of these vehicles, then someone will either be summoned to come pick that vehicle up, or then something other than ordered impoundment would happen at that point. And then a more palatable offense and a staggered offense of $50 to $250 might be more in order.
May I?
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that, except that I do think that on the second time around, if he gets a $50 fine, I think they ought to be able to pick it up. Would you be willing for me to amend your amendment to say, strike the impoundment on the first offense and pick it up on the second or the third? Because I think after the first time, we told him not to do it, and Mom and Dad should have said, okay, you don't need to be out there. Now he's defying both the law, or she is defying both the law and the parents, more than likely. And so at that point in time, we probably need to look at taking the vehicle away from that individual so that Mom and Dad will put the keys in their pocket and keep it so that until they can get home. I think you're right about the first offense. I don't have a problem with that.
Mr. Powell, would you suspend for a minute and we'll let Mr. Foster comment on some of the things we heard?
I wanted to add that the reason why the impoundment language was put in this bill, when we were having the study committee meetings over the summer, specifically law enforcement, and even more specifically is when we were at the Dalton meeting, the law enforcement said that the impoundment would be helpful to them. The reason being that a majority of the cases where they deal with juveniles on the roads or on the government property in Chattahoochee National Forest, the four-wheelers they were riding belonged to their parents. And when the parents were called in, the parent always said, I had no idea he had my four-wheeler. I was at work. I was wherever. The law enforcement asked us at that time to add impoundment because it might get mom's attention or dad's attention that, that Junior got his keys to his four-wheeler and was riding them. It was kind of a way to help the parents police their children. And that's why we added impoundment. It was at the request of law enforcement.
As well as item 3, forfeiture.
Well, we felt like on the third time, he was thumbing his nose at the judge, his parents, and everything else if he's out there riding. At that point in time, he thumbed his nose the third time. I mean, kind of like the three strikes rule that we have in most all laws that we have in Oregon.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my amendment.
Mr. Powell is withdrawing his amendment. Are there any other amendments? Mr. Murphy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment to the bill. I think what Representative Sims, is doing is just what Representative Powell has said, that, that he's trying to get the parents' attention on this. So I would just like to amend it to decrease the fines, leave everything as the same, decrease the first fine to $75, the second fine to $250, and the third fine to $500. I just think that that's going to start to get the attention that the parents need to realize they've got a problem with the ATVs.
And to further do that, would you also, Mr. Chairman, would you consider taking the impoundment off on the first offense, and then on the second offense, we would allow the impoundment, then on the third or fourth?
Yes, if that's what the author wants, I'd be glad to include that in my impoundment, take the impoundment off the first offense.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for making that motion, and I think that plays well off the committee process that we've had so far. The G, Mr. Murphy, was also included in the original motion that Mr. Powell made, and the question is whether or not that language should be included in your amendment.
No, sir, I'd like to keep that in there.
Okay. All right. Okay. We are in the posture of a motion to amend. We're going to vote on the amendment. The amendment is I'll read it back as I understand the way it states. Lines 20 and 21 on the second page remain the same under G. 22, H1, a first conviction of violating any provision of this code section shall be punishable by a fine of $75 or $75, period. Second, a second violation of conviction of violating any provision of this code section shall be punishable by impoundment of all-terrain vehicle, a fine of $250 or both. A third conviction of violating any provision of this code section shall be punishable by forfeiture of all-terrain vehicle, a fine of $500 or both. Is that your amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second to that amendment? All right, there's a second to that amendment by Mr. Bruce. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Okay, we are in the posture of, there's been a motion made on the bill, and we had a second on that. It calls for vote. So like all those, to signify by saying aye to pass Senate Bill 400 as amended by substitute. At this point in time, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Okay. One opposed? Bill carries. Okay. Let's see what we got. Is there anybody here on Senate Bill 402? Is there anybody here on Senate Bill? Okay, that's fine, yeah. This is the Bronze Star license plate. That's Senate Bill 402. This is Senator Jones, Senator Douglas, Senator Hill, Edelman, and Von Bremen.
I can comment on it.
Okay, Mr. Yates, if you want to,
When I happened to be in the Senate, walking by Senator Jones, and he said, look after my, vote for my bill over there, something to that effect, in 402. And he didn't, the fact he's not here, it may mean he thinks I'm going to carry the bill, but that was not intent. I didn't read the bill till I got here, and I have a lot of problems with the bill, and we can either postpone it or I'll ask Legislative Council. The problems I have with it, what about all the people who get awards, Congressional Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, Distinguished Service Cross, and the one I happen to have been awarded 6 times, the Air Medal, is equivalent to the Bronze Star. I'm not looking for a medal, but I'm mentioning that. It looks like this has not been investigated at all. I mean, I can't see passing. A Bronze Star is below in rank of a Silver Star. It's below Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, Congressional Medal of Honor. And if council look at the book and see that all of those have already been taken care of, then I guess he would be right.
Well, the Congressional Medal of Honor has been.
I figured it had.
and the Purple Heart, I think.
Purple Heart.
Yeah, Purple Heart is not something you did, it's something that's done to you.
That's true. But I'm not familiar with the license plate for, and Mr. Hooper is here, but with the Distinguished Service Medal and Navy Cross, Air Medal, I think just the Congressional Medal of Honor of the ones that you mentioned, Mr. Yates.
Well, it just seemed like odd to me that he would take the lowest ranking medal and want to give a free tag, and if we've ignored the others, I think we definitely should not pass a bill today. And I apologize that maybe I should have asked more questions, but he certainly, if you're going to carry a bill, somebody else should have said, I want you to carry the bill, I'm not going to be there.
Mr. Yates, I thank you for your comments. The bill will suspend any action on this bill. The fact that the senator has not shown up for the meeting probably is indicative of the fact that either he doesn't know where it is or he doesn't have enough interest in appearing
Well, I'll
before
get
this
with him to
committee.
explain what happened, because, as I say, I don't know. It seemed a strange thing that he would have intended for me to do it with that kind of comment.
Okay, Senator Stevens had a bill also, and Senator Stevens is not here today. Is anybody here on behalf of Senate Bill 481? Senate Bill 481? If they're not, we'll suspend action on 481. I thank you for your time today, and we are adjourned.